Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about a pipeline runs through it, the history of oil from ancient time to the First World War by Kate Fisher. Often when people heard oil, especially in the context of the title of this book, they immediately went to the regular oil used for cars, motorcycles, etc. But oil has many forms, from regular petrol to bitumen, asphalt, etc. It has been around way before vehicles even exist, and we have used them ever since the calendar was still on PC. In Middle East, there has been evidence that they have used bitumen since the Neolithic era 70,000 years ago. There is also evidence of increasing demand for bitumen during the early civilization of Mesopotamia era around 35,000 BC. Even in Gilgamesh epic dated between 2100 BC and 600 BC, it is written that the ark that the flood hero Utnapishtim built to avoid the Great Flood used bitumen to waterproof it. Ancient Greek, Babylon, and the Middle East used them for poetry, walls, and lamps. They eventually become a big part of making weapons of war like flaming arrows, flamethrowers, and even cannons. And we're still talking about early 1000 AD here. It was also around this time that we are learning how to distill oil. In around 1300, Syrian Arab scientist al-Dimashqi was the first to write the process of distilling petroleum, and as the year goes on, the book detailed painfully how the world started to use the many forms of oil more and more in many different things since then. Not just in Middle East, but also in Africa, Asia, Europe, Caribbean, etc. Until unfortunately into America and Canada, making it a global consumption that lasted to this day. In mid-1850, America, because of some very strategically placed water canals and the expansion of train railways on stolen lands, New York and Ohio become the first location that produced and commercialized petroleum on a large industrial scale. The first of its kind was Pennsylvania Rock Oil Company, built by Francis Brewer from Brewer Watson & Co. and the commercial lawyer George H. Bissell, who then secured more funds to buy lands near the oil grid to find out if they can make money out of selling raw oil. They got ripped off by a third-party consultant named Benjamin Silliman Jr., which is very silly, that tasked to study the usefulness of oil because he knew that they cannot sell much without his findings. But they got successful and viral enough that they started expanding their business, stealing more lands for them to dig and create more subsidiary companies like the Seneca Oil Company. It was in this company that Edwin L. Drake first became known. This was before he eventually be known as the first American to drill oil. He went to Ohio to find massive amount of oil for the company. A century before he arrived at Ohio, this was a beautiful place filled with trees and the sound of birds and woodpeckers leaving their marks on trees. But unfortunately, it became the site of fight between British and French that is mostly filled with who can kill and get rid of Indians the most. This is even pushed and supported by the Ohio Company of Virginia, who sees an opportunity to have more stolen land. The Indians tried their best to survive, even agreeing to a sham treaty with the British that they were forced to sign with literal guns pointed to them, so they are not even aware what they are signing to because it's not their language. They just wanted peace to return to their life after all, but peace did not return. The British make life hell for them, and the French only made it worse by building more force in Ohio in strategical places to fight against the British. And they both made life even more deadly to the Indians. Eventually, both colonialist parties started scalping for Indians' heads, declaring themselves as heroes the more Indians they murdered. While all of this is happening in 1755, Lewis Evans published Ohio map that he drew complete with all the location of where oil might be. British eventually won the war against the French by promising to protect the Indians to be able to stay on their rightful land, which is of course a lie. By the time Drake came in Ohio in 1858, most of the trees has been cut down without any Indians inside. In February 1763, when the European power agreed that Ohio belonged to British with the Treaty of Paris, the Indians tried to fight back, but they only faced even worse backlash for fighting back for what is stolen from them, and that is how the oil rush started, with the killing and stealing of the Indians' land by the colonization project of British and French. The worst of this will be the Sullivan expedition ordered by George Washington, where America tried to eradicate the Iroquois tribe, including burning the Indians' house and crops. This continued until after America won the War of Independence against British. They pushed the natives until only a few remains at Buffalo in Erie Triangle around Presque Island and in Oneida Company. But as usual with settlers in their occupied territory, they never had enough of taking from others. Settlers and traders started wanting the few lands occupied by the Indians, and when they formed a confederacy, they started getting hunted down and driven out of their lands again. Drake and Seneca oil came during this time, and for the first time in history, an oil drill appeared in America built by Drake. Then the drill produced the most oil ever seen by anyone dead or alive during that period. And that doesn't stop there, because they tried to produce as much oil as fast as possible. One of the dig sites struck oil and gas that caused an explosion that killed 19 people, but that didn't stop the continuous dig. The one that temporarily slowed the oil dig was the American Civil War. But even then, it go back into a frenzy once the Civil War is over. Competitors also started popping up, so Seneca Oil Company is not the only company that is digging for oil. One of these competitors was some guy named Rockefeller. He, along with many others, started the business of oil pipeline, and it was here that hell on earth finally arrived. Because of how much oil was in Oil's Creek, there were often fires burning all day, sometimes going to weeks, which of course didn't slow the digging, until eventually America became one of the leaders of oil trading. And the one who led them is John Rockefeller, who with his General Oil Company managed to lobby and lawyer up until he basically monopolized the oil pipeline industry along with the train industry, making every other company had to pay Standard Oil an absurd amount of money to transport their oil. This is one of the earliest events where corporates can change bills that the government passes in America, a practice that only grew more and more common that when their healthcare CEO was shot to death, mostly everyone celebrates no matter which spectrum they were politically. There were attempts to stop the monopoly and how much influence Rockefeller can have to the government, even union was involved, but it didn't work. From 1880 to almost 19,000, Standard Oil controlled 85% of US and some of Canada oil refinement. The only reason they slowed down was because they cannot expand faster than that, and this is happening not just in America. Because of the success of oil company and trading, countries across the globe soon follow the footsteps of Standard Oil malpractices, and with more and more countries producing oil, soon oil and conflict is beginning to mix more thoroughly. The colonial oil era started with British forcefully annexing Upper Burma using propaganda. Eventually, British started drilling in Burma using the Assam Railway and Trading Corporate. Dutch, who have colonized Indonesia at that time, was made aware that Aceh is producing high-quality oil by Standard and Royal Dutch Oil, and then backed by British and Holland, eventually the Dutch started the Aceh War against the Aceh resistance in one of the most untold genocide. When Russia went to war against Turkey, they had to make an agreement with British not to attack Suez Canal or Egypt because British was busy mining oil there. But Egyptians then changed their leadership to Urabi, who is against foreign intervention, so British, who still wanted the oil there, started to secretly arm Urabi's political rival, the Maltese Greek. And then the Maltese Greek accidentally killed an Egypt boy, causing a riot that eventually started the Anglo-Egypt War that killed 10,000 Egyptians, resulting in their oil to continue being dug by Brits even after they were done killing them. It is now 3 years after the start of Aceh War. The Royal Dutch has now started drilling not just in Aceh but also in Java, Jambi, Palembang, etc. And during this time, to lower the price of oil transport to General Oil, Royal Dutch, the company that is drilling in Indonesia, incorporate their shell company as Transport and Trading Co., a company that is still operating in Indonesia nowadays. The Aceh War lasts more than 40 years, killing an estimate up to 100,000 Indonesians. But as if fate is trying to show that it can always get worse, the oil engine era started. Yes, we are finally arriving at cars. But way before we arrive here, oil itself has become not just a symbol of money, it is power, especially now that it has successfully lobbied to make the war and war dependent on it. Propaganda, assassination, war, colonization happens more often, and in all of this, oil become a more important material because a lot of weapons of war run using oil. The book is crazy detailed. This might have been one of the most detailed historical non-fiction that I've ever read. It is of course long since oil itself has such a long history as a subject, then it covered the rise of its development as building block, as technology, as an industry, then as reason for colonization. War and genocide on a global scale with all the names and dates and everything and everyone involved. That's why the book is massive and dense. It's 750 pages and about 150 of those are resources. I skipped through most of them because they are information that I currently can convey through how I made and edit these videos, but I want to try to at least mention how much of modern history of oil is modern history of Western intervention in Asia, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, Middle East, etc. Even before World War I or II and before the anti-communist propaganda of America that they used in order to defeat Soviet during the Cold War, oil was involved in some equation in all of those, either as the direct reason or oil corporate lobbying. I mean the 750 pages even ends before World War I started or mention any type of carbon or climate change at all. That's how much oil was involved in making war and profit so entangled with each other. There are times when the details and quotes that are there on every page hurt its readability, but if you want all the juicy detail of history, this book is for you. I give this a 4. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.